Welcome to That's So Rad podcast. I'm your host, Travis Vonksness. This is a podcast about people, their passions, their life experiences, and their stories. As writer Frederick Buechner once said, the story of any one of us is in some measure the story of us all. All of us can learn something valuable from someone else's life and their stories. Join us for another conversation where we learn, laugh, and leave, seeing our own life in new ways. What's more rad than that? Welcome to another episode of That's So Rad podcast. I'm your host, Travis. I'm feeling pretty rad today, and I'm joined by my classmate from our graduating class in our small town in Rugby, North Dakota, of the class of 1998. We're both rocking our night class t-shirts that we had an idea last minute to go grab, and so we're putting them on, and mine is much yellower than my guest Rachael Ormond, who is a classmate of mine, and this podcast is all about inspiration, stories, laughs, things like that. And so just seeing Rachael, seeing her art through the years and kind of the awesome work you're doing with art and photography, I was like, this would be a really cool, fun discussion. Could catch up, talk about that. So great to have you on the podcast today, Rachael.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Travis. I'm honored to be the first female classmate that you've had on.
That's correct.
That's pretty awesome. But yeah, to your listeners that don't know me or the ones that haven't seen me in, 27 years, I am in Chicago now, or I guess I like to say the country of Chicago. We're in the western burbs, about an hour and a half from the city, in a town called, it's a township called Campton Hills. We're just outside of St. Charles. So it's very confusing to people that don't know the area. But we are in the western burbs of Chicago. And I've been out there it's been 20 years now. We've been in St. Charles for 10, have been in our same home for, 10 years now.
Okay.
But after rugby, I kind of jumped around a bit. I went to Bismarck to college, was there for about 6 years, then moved to Massachusetts for a year. And then after that, moved to Chicago because that's where my now husband was from. And we are now married for 17 years, just celebrated an anniversary in September. So
awesome. Congrats.
Yeah, 17 years. I think it's impressive, but
I'm with you. Yeah, I think we just hit 18, so we're right with you.
Yeah, right.
Hey, it's impressive. We're
doing it.
We're doing it.
Living the dream. But yeah, we have 2 daughters together, Ava and Emma, who are 14 and 11. And if you have teenagers, you know what teenage girls are like. So that's what we're living through right now. And
you said they're 14 and 11?
14 and 11.
Okay.
Both girls. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So it's a lot of hormones and a lot of crying and a lot of fighting, in my house. And then we just added a puppy and a kitten to that. So
why not?
It's very chaotic right now. So I have both of the animals locked up, but you may see the cat jump out of nowhere soon. Hopefully not.
Cats, as we found out, love to be podcast guests.
All right.
And they will just find a way to be on. So
But yeah, my husband, he was married before, and so he's got 2 boys.
Okay.
And they're in their 30s. So
wow.
I actually have grandchildren. So that is something, pretty unusual and cool all at the same time. I have 3 grandchildren, 7, 4, and 1. So it's definitely odd to think that I'm still raising my own kids and then, being a grandma to 3 little ones, but we do it and it's a good time.
That's awesome.
And then professionally, I've been a photographer here for 20 years. I've had my own company for 14 of the 20 years. And I just, in the last few years, I've really started back on the fine art. I've been painting and trying to get that going. So that's been a journey, and it's been like the most fun. Like,
Hmm.
it kind of brings me back to, you know, a simple life, I guess, back in
Mm-hmm.
high school when I did a lot of painting in high school. So
Hmm.
it's nice to get back to that, and it's nice to try it professionally. So yeah,
Very cool.
that's where I'm at right now.
Very cool. Yeah, that's man, that's a great. I mean, I just learned a bunch of stuff right there. So,
Right.
yeah, and we're definitely going to go back later in this conversation. We're going to talk a lot more about your art and photography career and kind
Mhm.
of the inspiration and some of that behind that. But before we do, we must go back in time, and so we will go back in the nostalgias of the '90s. I so I'm wearing a Kmart hat. We both last second, this was your idea, which is a great one. We thought let's grab our senior t-shirts, and we both had them on in like 2 minutes. So that
Yeah.
meant they were very accessible. And we've
Yeah.
also noticed looking at your pristine white one and my, if I look at the label of the Kmart hat compared to the color of mine, wow, is it yellow?
Yeah, you must have
So
really worn it a lot and really highlighted that
I
you were a senior from Rugby High.
I either that, which I don't remember, or like up in the attic, like there's like a chemical spill on it, and I'm just soaking in something bad here. But
Yeah.
okay, so let's talk growing up in a small town in North Dakota. We so okay, what do you want to say about that, or what are your memories looking back? We're both farm kids. Let's start there. Farming.
Farming, I mean, man, I always think to like winters. Like here in
Mm,
Chicago, our winters are terrible here. It snows just enough to irritate you, but not enough to go sledding or snowmobile. Where
yep.
I always tell people we had like the best childhoods because there was so much snow. There was always
Yep.
sledding, and we had a snowmobile, and that's what we did all weekend. We just were outside bundled up where, just our eyes were showing, and we were out there all day, and it was great. Like the weather did not phase us.
Right.
But like here there's no activities to do. So the winter, even though it's shorter, feels so much longer because
Mm-hmm.
it's just cold, and just irritating. So yeah, the winters is what I really remember loving out there. Um, and
Yeah.
just living out on the farm too. I don't know what your childhood was like, but like we never, during the summers, we never went to town. It was
Mm,
either to go to church or to go visit grandma, like,
right.
and the rest of the time was at the farm. And so you really had to get along with your siblings because that was it for you. Like you did,
Yeah.
we didn't have any other playmates but them.
Yep.
But the farm was awesome because it was like a giant playground. We had, the shelter belts, and we would make, I don't know, people know what shelter belts are where you
We
are.
explained that in a previous one. Yeah. Explain a shelter belt to someone that has no idea.
So North Dakota has no trees. So
Most
around
treeless state in the country.
yeah, so around the farms, you really had to make a perimeter of trees around your farm just so the wind wouldn't blow the snow and the dirt through the yard. Um, that's how I explain it
Yeah.
to people
Yeah.
around here. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And you'd see what we described, I guess it was the long rows, especially like that would separate fields because it was literally
Hmm.
like blowing the topsoil of fields off. So it
Yep.
was like, but yeah, wild.
Yeah. But we would spend our summers in the trees building these like legit villages out there. Like we had
Mm.
tree houses, and we would make teepees. I had a garden at one point. I even dug my first pond in the trees. And I
A
say my first
pond?
pond because that was not my last pond I dug, Travis.
What? Like excavating equipment? What were you digging with?
No, shovel
Mm.
and a lot of man hours out there.
Oh my gosh, you hand shoveled
I,
more than one pond.
yes. The one at the farm was much bigger and deeper. And the funny thing is, I remember my parents not having any problems with me just digging. This thing was like 7 feet perimeter. Like it was, and it was deep. It probably went to here. It was like,
Oh my
it was
gosh.
deep. And my parents had no problem with it until I wanted to fill it with water. And then,
Ah.
my dad put the brakes on it and he's just like, "You're not filling that." I'm like, "Why did you let me dig it if you weren't going to let me fill it?" I think he just wanted to keep me busy, like out of
That's
trouble.
hilarious. Yeah, because I was going to ask, at what point in the digging were they questioning, like, what is this hole for?
Nope,
Like,
never said a thing. Never
okay,
said a thing. Yeah, I think they
just
just wanted
you
me,
just keep
I think I was like 12, so I probably was annoying. So they probably just wanted to keep me outside as long as
just keep
possible.
digging.
That's kind of what I
You're like living out the real story of holes or something.
Yeah.
Wow, that is really funny.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I'm curious your experience too. So everything you've said so far, I'm totally vibing with. Of very similar. Of like we lived like 15 miles out of town,
Mm.
and so to your point, we certainly went into town some, but it was mostly out there, out of the farm.
Mhm.
Now maybe a difference, but I don't want to stereotype this. I as a dude was definitely doing farm work at like age 11. So was that part of your experience of actually like doing some of the stuff or?
I don't know. I think boys and girls have different jobs
Mm-hmm.
on the farm, and you may
Mm-hmm.
have had a different farm. Did you have animals like livestock?
No, we didn't.
Okay, so you guys
Nope.
were like grain
Just
farmers like
yep,
the
right.
rest of us. So
Yep.
the thing is, and I'm kind of upset about this now that I'm older, I never got to learn how to drive any machinery. Like
Oh, okay.
that was not a thing for us gals. Like my brother knows how, which, I'm not going to say
Yeah.
that's sexist, but but we had
Right.
different chores. And I think my chores were much more difficult than his. So
Because
I was
yours were
always the
manual labor.
Yes. It wasn't far off from, and I think my mom just thought I liked to dig. So my job usually was to go to the very end of the property because when my dad grew up there, they had cows. And so there was a corral in the back of our property and there was a huge manure pile.
Yep.
And my job was to take the wheelbarrow, go and, get manure and spread it in the gardens and the flower beds for my mom. And nobody else had to do that at my house but me. So I
Man.
would say that's a little harder of a job than
Uh,
driving a tractor.
heck yeah.
And then the chicken coops too. We had chickens for a few years, which
Ooh.
were the worst.
Oh man.
Just the smell from chickens. And we didn't
Oh.
have just like 5 or 10. We had like 100 because they were meat chickens,
Mm,
which we would then butcher in the fall.
sure.
So it was just like scraping poop and hauling that.
Man.
And, all we would get out of it was like a Dairy Queen treat. Like it wasn't even a paid, we didn't get paid anything.
No,
Got ice cream.
that's another thing that so we have four teenagers, and one who's 6. And some of the things that I run into as a dad is like, especially with my oldest, we would get into a lot of like arguments and I'd get really heated around like stuff I'd ask him to do. Right. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe it's like go mow the lawn, sit on a riding mower and mow for, an hour. And
Yeah.
so if ever there was like pushback or like even like eye rolling and stuff, I'd always be like, do you know what I had did? And I find myself
Uh-huh.
going to that and a lot of that was resentment. I mean, it wasn't just like because I remember having to drive a tractor for hours a day and like just
Mm-hmm.
having to do, grain bin shoveling and all that
Yeah.
stuff because
Yeah.
we just didn't have, I mean, dad couldn't hire anyone. I couldn't get paid. So it was all just
Yeah.
like, so
Yeah.
kind of a double-edged sword
Yeah.
of a great memory. And it helped what formed us, formed you too. And
Oh,
like
for
your work
sure.
ethic and
Oh, for sure.
yeah.
Absolutely. And I still work that hard. We have about 3/4 of an acre here. And I've landscaped the entire thing myself. Like pulled out bushes,
Yeah.
took out everything, replanted, maintained, and I'm like, nobody else works like I know nobody else works this hard especially after like working a full-time job, like
Right.
why aren't I hiring this out? But I'm just like, I just think it's like it kind of brings you back to,
Yep.
again, the simple things in life, and it almost like relieved my stress just being outdoors and doing
Yeah.
just a
Yeah.
little sweating out there, you
Yeah,
know?
for sure. Yeah, I definitely could see that. It's an outlet for that. And like
Mhm.
you said, it reconnects you to the past of like just kind of just like actual like kind of physical labor, the
Yeah.
smell of like even dirt and things like I mean,
Yeah.
it's funny how our sensory experience of that stuff just also kind of takes you back and man, so true.
I know.
Um,
And yeah, and just raising two girls now, and they just, I'm like, you have no idea. You have no idea. Like you,
right.
because they don't, they don't help with anything. Because I feel like I'm a bit of a control freak where I like things like so. I think it's,
Mm-hmm.
the artist in me where I'm like, this has
Yep.
to go here and this has to do. So I don't force them to like help me, which I should,
Mm-hmm.
it'd probably give them a
Yep.
little bit more responsibility. But yeah, it's I do
Yeah.
lecture a lot though about my childhood.
Well, oh my God. I was out digging ponds, okay? You can come up
Yeah.
and take the garbage out. Okay, so let's, man, it's so true. And one of the things I wanted to say just about being formed, I really have at middle age now, I read a lot. I love to kind of study or just kind of like reflect on how we were formed and shaped by where we came from
Hmm.
and how even the landscape. There's a great book called Dakota, who's a great writer, Kathleen Norris, and she's got this kind of magical line about North Dakota that kind of takes, what you've said in this conversation and what we'll probably keep saying reminds me of, but she said, she describes it as a land rich in grass and sky and
Hmm.
full of surprises. And
Hmm.
I think a lot about how that characterization of our upbringing and the state we came from, the Northern Plains, man, that really shaped something of like, eh, let me ask you this, like, I'm jumping ahead a little bit to where we're going to talk about creativity and stuff like that. But you're still in the Midwest in Illinois, where I think you
Hmm.
probably maybe not in your city, but like I'm guessing, do you see like a horizon, like a big sky still in where you're at, or no?
In certain spots, because
Okay.
we are surrounded by fields. Like there's a lot of corn here. There are a couple farms, like there's a
Mm-hmm.
cow farm, and so it's like a 5-minute drive from us where we can see, the
Gotcha.
beautiful sunsets. But again, so I when I lived out in Massachusetts, for a short time, that was the one thing, because I went from North Dakota to Massachusetts.
Jeez.
And if you've ever been there, it's hills and trees, hills and
Yep.
trees.
Mm-hmm.
And I that was the one thing I remember being very claustrophobic,
Yep.
is because North Dakota, it's you can see a storm coming from 10 miles away,
Right.
and there it
Right.
was like you waited till it was on top of you. And I felt
Yeah.
very jarred by that. I just
Yeah.
that was one thing that I noticed. Like
Yeah.
I love the openness. I love to
Yep.
see the storms coming in and leaving,
Right.
and you
Right.
know, you don't have that, even here, like I tell people about like just like the night. Like you don't get like the 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 city lights
Mm-hmm.
messing with the sky, and you can
Yeah.
actually see stars out there, and a lot
Right.
of them, which isn't usual for this
Yeah.
area.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's so man. There we won't belabor this part long, but I've said this before and kind of maybe in another episode, but like it might have been in that same book on Dakota where Shuli talks about like the comparison of like growing up in a state like that and kind of making the comparison of like the sea and how the
Mhm.
wavy like grain or whatever kind of emulates the waves of an ocean and
Yeah.
farms are like ships scattered across the night with yard lights like miles away being ships and
Yeah.
this giant and I was like that is so true, that is a
Yeah.
really good So we
Yeah.
long for the sea, I guess, of big
Our
spaces.
version,
I mean,
our
because
version of the sea.
yeah, exactly. Because like we're in South Carolina, which is a beautiful state. You know, we have the
Hmm.
ocean not too far, the mountains are not too far, but like Massachusetts, you know, just tons of trees, you know, going on the interstate, you can't see hardly anything.
Hmm.
And I remember any trip going north where from here, like when we used to live in St. Louis, like if you get kind of, I want to say on maybe Western Kentucky going northwest,
Hmm.
all of a sudden farms, sky opens up
Hmm.
and almost like feeling that sense of like, I can
Yeah.
breathe. I can, you know, I'm
Yeah.
back to my
For sure.
habitat.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's
So,
like a sense of, it's almost like a sense of peace,
right.
like
Yeah,
I don't
that's
know
a great
why.
way to say it. A sense of
Yeah.
peace.
Yeah.
Because that's what we really knew. I mean, I don't,
Hmm.
because I could see it being
Simpler
another thing for
times.
yeah, simpler times. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, very cool. So that's some good stuff about like our farm and, you know, kind of some of the stuff around that and our experiences there. Let's kind of go into just like some school memories, the 90s, things that, you know, we
Okay,
want to talk.
I did tell you I did find a special something in my collection of high school stuff, and I bet you do too.
I
But for
do. We both brought one high school thing.
those who
Oh,
don't
here we
remember what
go.
I
Oh
it's
man.
like, who's this gal? Like with that discus.
Okay, I didn't know you were in track. I forgot that. So for all of high school or what?
Yeah. Like
Okay.
I was not a runner. That was definitely not my jam. But I did want to be on a team. Like
Mm-hmm.
Travis, I am not known for being a team player. So I never was great at sports. But you
Yep.
wanted to be a part of something in high school, especially a small high school. Like you just felt
Right.
like you had to join things.
Right.
And so discus and shot put was what I chose. And it was fun. I can't say I was good at it, but just like being on the team and being on the bus and going to track
Yeah,
meets, and I
for
think that was
sure.
like our one opportunity to like see boys,
Yep.
in high
Oh
school
yeah.
it's like you see the same people over and over.
Exactly.
You're related probably to half
100%.
of them, in a small town.
Right.
So
It's
that
true.
was like our opportunity to like check out guys, in
Man,
neighboring towns. So yeah,
we
that
had
was
you and
my.
I had the same exact motivation in track because I played football, but my senior year I went out for track for that reason. I was like,
Mhm.
I didn't want to run, although I ended up being put on the team that and ended up running. But
Weren't you
I
cross
wanted
country?
n- uh, no, please no. No,
Okay.
a lot of my sister was a legendary runner. A lot of the rest
Yeah,
of my
maybe
crew.
that's, I just
Um,
assumed.
well, maybe because I did run track one year, but I will say this: like I was going out to not have to run, but just want to do long jump, jump in the sand,
Hmm.
and check out girls.
Yeah.
And I ended up being so bad that in like long jump, wasn't able to barely do that. And then I did do good running, so we went to state for the 4x400. But
Yeah.
the girl thing didn't work out either. Although just
Yeah.
scoping out, like you were saying, just being around other people that aren't from your school.
Yeah.
That was, but the bus rides, it was fun to just be part of a team like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, those were fun memories. Like, and that's, one of those things that I tell my kids too, because they're so adamant about not joining anything.
Yep.
And I'm like, you have to do something to make either good or bad memories. You need a story when you're 45 years old and you're on a podcast.
That's right. Good or bad, but you need a story for a future podcast. That's okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
all right, you've already busted out some good ones. So okay, so here's mine.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
so there we go. The frosted tips.
Yes, I
Um,
remember the frosted tips on your bag.
yes, yep. So here's a question I've got about these, and they've been brought up by our previous classmates. Statuettes, I think, is what we call them, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, and I don't know your experience. Everyone's had their own stories of like everyone I've been around in college, and it blows everybody's minds. No one's had I've never seen that before. We call them mini me's. As a professional photographer, I got to ask you this: what's your feeling on those? Was that really innovative by their studio? I mean, what do you think of it?
Where did they even come from? Like, were the boosters buying
I
those
think
for
they
us? Because I don't
sponsored,
think
yeah,
our
they
parents would have bought them for
right. I
us.
think the boosters did, but I mean, Strand Studio, right, is
Yeah,
the
Chuck. Mm-hmm.
Chuck. Okay, so
Chuck.
I think it's pretty. I mean, would you say innovative is the right word? Or I mean, it's not a
Mm. Well, I would say Chuck is a born salesman. So
okay.
I imagine he
Ah,
would convince the school because these things probably cost a
oh,
fortune.
I
And
bet. Seriously.
he's like, I know how to make money off of this school.
Okay,
I'm gonna
that's a
encourage to buy little statues of every single thing that they join. Because I think I have one from choir as well.
r-
Like I was in choir
really.
for 1 year, I think my senior year, just so I could get one more statue
Wow. So
to
you
like
hacked the system,
flank
man.
my graduation table of track and, choir,
That's
you know?
hilarious. Wait a second though. I have I guess I have a marching band one. I was in choir. I never got one. Maybe they capped them out at 3 or something. Maybe there was a cap on the
Yeah,
school going like,
maybe. And
okay,
maybe
we'll
I'm
drop.
imagining it, but I think I do have another one.
That's hilarious. So that's a great thought that he had a like really entrepreneurial angle of
Yeah. Yeah.
like, yeah,
I'm
I'll
sold on that. I'm
convince.
sold on that. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Well, from that's your
Um,
photographer's thought on it.
yeah. The funny thing is, I said I lived out in Massachusetts. Well, the reason I was out there was for photography school. And you know who recommended that school to me? That was Chuck's home.
Hmm.
Like that Chuck went
Really?
there. Yeah,
He's
that's how
from
I ended
there?
up out there. Yeah. So,
So, okay, so did you have like even post high school? I mean, some kind of like mentorship with him, or was there like or you
oh,
just
he
knew him and
was no, he's buddies with my mom.
gotcha. Okay.
So yeah, he was a nice, he was a good guy. And
Yeah,
I
real
think my
nice
mom
guy.
had mentioned, that I was thinking about going back to school. And, when I
Yep.
went out there, I was 24. It wasn't straight out of, high school by any means. So,
Sure.
and I wanted to go to Boston. I wanted to go to like some fancy fine art,
Boston.
weird
Okay.
photography school.
Yeah.
And he's just like, He's like, you go check out Hallmark. He's like, they will teach you business out there, on how to actually use photography and make a business out of it. So
Okay.
yeah,
Well,
and that's what I
that's
did. It was awesome.
interesting. Well, I have one more thing, and unless you have any other final props from school. Now, one interesting thing is we had I don't know if we said this when we talked with Isaac in that episode, but talked about like we also had a unique experience where small town, but
Mhm.
within the small town, two, I guess, different elementary schools, a Catholic school and then a public school, who then fed in together in junior high. So that was an interesting kind of cultural experience to then become, kind of classmates the rest of our time.
Yeah.
And several years ago, I dug up this picture of uh, I don't know if you can see that. Or actually, this is a reminder. If you hope this is a very visual episode. I meant to say that at the start of this. Obviously, you can listen on Apple, but this is a YouTube one for sure because we're gonna have more pictures and things to share, paintings. But yeah, I remember sharing this on Facebook several years ago, and I said something like, man, look at this uh, lava lamp sweater I was wearing in junior high, and I think you commented like, yeah, I remember dancing with that sweater. I was like, that was made me laugh out loud. Um, but yeah, we had some junior high dances that were interesting, weren't they?
It's an odd concept to me to stick a bunch of, you know,
Mm-hmm.
hormonal teenagers in a
Yep.
room together and play Mariah Carey and Garth Brooks. And
Oh man.
you remember the Meatloaf song that was
Yeah.
like 12
Yeah.
minutes long? Like, just like you really had to like that person that asked you to dance for that song. Like,
Right.
it was
Oh
literally,
yeah.
I Googled it. It's 12 minutes.
Oh
Like,
my gosh.
that's, that's, That's a lot,
Yeah.
but that's a weird concept to me to be sticking kids in a dark room and playing, romantic songs. I'm just like
These, yeah.
awkward, just awkward.
Yeah, I think we were talking about like PE teachers and stuff. A lot of times chaperoning these or doing some of that stuff too. And like, almost like, was there like a matchmaking thing going on? Like, was there an attempt? I don't know. It's just, it is
Maybe.
weird. It's weird
No,
to look back there.
Travis, the one memory I have of you, because we didn't hang out a lot in
Right.
in school. Like I don't know if we just didn't have the same
Well,
classes, or they
yeah,
always seemed to like put us in alphabetical order in school, so the B's and the B's never really
that's
sat
right.
by each other.
That's true. Yep.
But in Phi Ed, and my kids hate when I call it Phi Ed.
Yeah.
They call it gym and PE. But in Phi Ed, we had to dance. Like we had to learn like the foxtrot and two step and the waltz for whatever reason. And I remember Mr. Jorgensen always pairing us. Like we either chose each other or he paired us up together, but we always ended up dancing together.
I, yeah,
And I
we'll
think
never
we were just
remember.
equally awkward together. It was, I just remember
Scanning
being
the room
like,
and going,
Travis is
okay, who
just as
else?
awkward as I
Who's the female awkward version right now? Okay, let's do this. All right, that's funny. So maybe it was a mix of that or some weird. Yeah, that is funny. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
that's my memory of you though in school when I think of Travis.
Wow. Okay. Hey, I'll take it. Those were good times. It seems like so long ago. Here's a last final token. Now, feed the rush. Surge did make a comeback, as we know. There was a underground cult following that it got a relaunch. But before that, and I think you can still get it in Five Below. I got a Surge off eBay like back in like 2009. That was like 10 years, 15 years old. Drank it. I'm still alive. So I don't know.
You're
Maybe I spilled it on the shirt. That's why it's this color. I don't know what happened, but it was wild.
weird.
So
Like I don't remember Surge at
you don't
all.
remember Surge?
No.
So if you would have, are you serious?
Well, my
How
mom
are you in
never
the
bought
90s and you don't
any.
remember Surge?
No, I didn't drink a lot of soda back then.
Wow. I
Or
mean, but
pop.
this was just,
Pop.
oh, did you watch TV though?
Not
Or were you
yeah,
just digging ponds all the time?
we were outside a lot. No, we had three channels out at the farm.
Okay.
Um MTV was only at grandma's, so you know, sometimes we watched normal television, but it was like, the channel 10, 13, and PBS. Like that's
Oh
what we
yeah, for
had.
sure. I gotcha. So why I'm saying that though is like this is so iconic of like our like for different reasons.
Yeah.
But one of them is they had these commercials that were like feed the rush and it had this crazy like guys were like flipping over tables and doing all this stuff. And it's fascinating because it's sort of a marketing disaster where Surge actually had less caffeine than Mountain Dew. Surge
Oh,
is Pepsi, a Pepsi product. Mountain Dew is a Coca-Cola, but and no, vice versa. And what happened though was marketing wise, their aggressive sort of commercials of that rage and angst and craziness made parents like it backfired marketing wise because parents were like, oh, we can't do this because
yeah.
pulled it. And then, but it was ahead of its time because then just a few years later, out comes Red Bull and the whole like
Oh,
energy
sure.
drink phase. So it was like Surge. So that's part of our
Yeah.
90s thing,
They're
but
like the
interesting.
OG of energy
Yep,
drinks,
it
right?
is right. Yeah. All right.
That's
So any
crazy.
other final 90s reminiscing school or
Um, yeah, I'm trying to think.
covered it pretty good? I mean,
We
awkward
covered it pretty good.
dances.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dances. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like
Good
that.
deal. All right. Well, there we go. So some fun memory lane. So, um, okay, there's not necessarily a clear, easy segue into this, but we don't care. So we're going to just go right into. I am really fascinated by what, again, uh, we already talked with this. We weren't really necessarily friends much in high school thing.
Hmm.
And through the years, obviously, we haven't kept up much, but there's
Yeah.
been just, through social media is a cool way to just keep an eye on our classmates and things like that. So one of the cool things I've seen in kind of your life is your photography and art career, and
Yeah.
seeing paintings and all your work. So let's talk about that. Where did that journey begin? And then where it's led you today.
Um, well, I mean, I think, when you're an artist, it starts early. You know, I
Mm-hmm.
I remember, back in Rugby, do you remember, they had two grocery stores when we were kids. They
Mm-hmm.
had the one by the train tracks and then the one that's there now.
Yep.
The one by the train tracks was closer to our house. So every once in a while we'd go there and they'd have coloring contests.
Okay.
Do you remember those? They'd give you color sheets. You colored them at home, you brought them back, and they
I
would hang
don't
them
remember
up
that.
and judge them.
Okay.
And I remember just killing it on those coloring contests. And you'd win like pop and candy bars, and as a kid that was like gold.
Yep.
Um and I remember that was like the first time I was just like, I really like art,
Yeah.
and then I would just like continue. And I wasn't good at really anything in school. Like I was not, great at math. I was okay.
Mm-hmm.
I got by,
Yeah.
passed. But art was like the only thing that I really like enjoyed. So, Mr. Kreckla, I think we were all forced to take art.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Um, but then you could actually go on to like go in the back of the room in the art room and just like do your own thing. I think you could do that for like every year you could have picked art and did that. So that's what I
Yeah.
did. I just would park myself in the back of the art room and um paint whatever I wanted. And I did pull out an old painting from,
Oh, here we go.
can I show it now?
Of course.
Like, and
Let's.
I thought this was really good back in the day.
So this is from high school.
This is from high school. You know, do you see it?
Wow.
A
Yeah.
wolf? Okay.
That's very cool.
Um, I thought it was, looking back at it now, I'm like, huh. Okay, good. Okay, Rachel. But I enjoyed it. I was,
Yeah.
and it's like then you come to terms with, okay, I'm graduating soon.
Yep.
I don't really enjoy anything but art. Like what should we do here? So I went to Bismarck State to their commercial art program. And I loved some classes, hated others, but
Mm-hmm.
I really loved the photography part of it. And the drawing, hated the graphic design, was not vibing with that. But I ended up getting a job right out of college in Bismarck at a place called Dakota Collectibles. And it was like embroidery design. So, what you see on your little hat, or grandma's hand towels, the pictures,
Mm-hmm.
like somebody drew that, and that somebody could have been me. Like there is 9 of us artists in one room and all we did was draw all day. And I did that for almost 5 years. Um, the last year I did it, I was kind of getting bored. Um, Stir crazy, all my friends there were getting married, having kids.
Mm-hmm.
I was not in that headspace. So my friend who was the trade show coordinator was like, come with me. We're gonna travel the country and you're gonna sell our product and love your job again. And I was like, fantastic. Get me out of North Dakota. I'm going stir crazy here. In North Dakota,
Mm-hmm.
it's like if you don't hunt, fish, or like the
Yep.
lake, what else is there? I did none of
It's
those things.
the 10th most boring state in the country, and that's been an actual stat. I
Really?
Yep.
I would, yeah, that
There you
makes
go.
sense. But yeah, I did that, got to travel, met my husband at a trade show, or my soon to be husband. We became fast friends and just kind of continued on. Um, but again, I was like, I wasn't feeling North Dakota anymore. I just felt like there's something bigger and better for me outside
Mm-hmm.
of it. So that was when I was kind of deciding to go back to school and pursue photography, which, I loved already, thought I could find a job easier, just because photography is kind of everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Had my heart set on wedding photography, which I'm like, that sounds like fun. they get paid a ton of money. Like, let's do this. So I did find a school that Chuck Rep now went to as well. So me and Chuck have that in common. We went to the same photography school, and it was in the western part of Massachusetts.
Mm-hmm.
So you take North Dakota girl and move her out to Massachusetts. She's like the shiny new toy out there. Like everybody was like, I know nobody from North
What?
Dakota. And
Right?
the accent, Travis, like I
Oh,
don't think we realized how bad our accents were until you move far
yep.
away. Were you teased
Especially
as
to a
well?
metro area.
Yeah. Were you teased? Like
Oh,
pointed
oh
and
yeah. Oh,
looked
for
at?
for sure. Yeah. Or like, whoa, like you Canadian? What in the world?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, I'll still get that. Like I thought it was gone, but every once in a while when I
Oh,
get excited, the
never fully leaves.
comes back.
Oh no.
Yeah. Then they're like,
Get
wait a
your
minute, you're
school
not from
bags,
here.
kids. Get out your bag.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I lived out in Massachusetts and had, the time of my life out there, traveled all up and down and took pictures and, really had a great 10 months out there. And, graduation comes around and you kind of have to decide what you want to do with your life, stay there, move back to Bismarck, which my mom would have loved.
Mm.
Or, try out Chicago. That's where my
Mm-hmm.
boyfriend at the time, now husband, was
Mm-hmm.
from. And I'm like, well, I'm young. What do I have to lose? So moved out there. And I gotta say, it took me a solid 10 years to actually like get used to traffic. Like I was, kind of in a tailspin because, I remember
Oh man, yeah.
my first wedding I did, I got lost. It was MapQuest and I had no idea where I was going. And I called Jimmy and I was like, can you MapQuest these directions? I'm here. And he's just like, not the person to call for directions, first of all. And I just remember just being terrified. I was like on the 294 and going, I don't even know what direction. And it was just kind of an eye opener of like, holy crap, I really have to get used to driving here. And so I did weddings for somebody for 9 months and just hated it. Found out I was a crier. So, you can't act professional and cry at people's,
Right.
best man speeches. Like it doesn't go hand in hand. So I was like, oh, I need to find something else to do. And so I found a job doing real estate photography. And
Mm.
I just one of those things that I picked up and loved. Like, I think I was more fascinated by going into other people's homes, just the
Mm.
curious person,
Mm-hmm.
how they decorate and how they live and what kind of dogs do they have?
Mm-hmm.
Just it was just different every day and exciting. And um, I just fell in love with it. And I worked for this company for probably 4 or 5 years. And in that time span, me and Jimmy got married and I was now pregnant with Ava, our 14-year-old. And I was on maternity leave and I kind of had to make a decision of going back with the company or was this the time I start my own. And um I just went for it. I like to I like a good challenge and I like
Mm-hmm.
change. Some people are terrified to leave their jobs because they're afraid of the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've kind of never been like that. I always kind of go towards the challenge and,
Hmm.
what's the worst that could happen? You just find a different job if it
Mm-hmm.
didn't work out. So, first year was tough. I was taking care of a newborn, figuring out the days and outs of daycare and, being independent. I um, struggled probably the first 2 or 3 years and just the time it takes to start your own company um, was very daunting. I remember just, my marriage suffered a little bit and me and Jimmy were
Mm-hmm.
fighting about me never being around and,
Yep.
just, it was very hard the first few years. Um, and then I started getting help, not professionally help, but I got more photographers on my team. I got an editor. I even had an assistant for a while. and my company grew. I think I had 10 photographers on staff at one point.
Wow.
Um, it was just a booming business at the time. There wasn't a lot of people doing it. Um, and we were one of the few. So it was kind of like you worked hard every day. But again, it takes, the toll on everything else, and
Right.
then I got pregnant again. I had Emma 3 years later, and then I really was like, huh, what am I
Yeah.
doing? Why am I working so hard?
Hmm.
Um, and I did that probably up until COVID. I think COVID was kind of like one of those things that was like a make or break for a lot of people.
Yep.
And I think it was probably probably the best thing that could have happened to me personally, because I had to force myself to like take a break. We
Right.
couldn't leave the house.
Yep.
Um, and you kind of like thought about like, well, you know, you think about a lot of things during a time like that where it's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, maybe my life is more than work. Maybe I need to
Yep.
spend time with my kids. Like I learned fast that I wasn't a great parent. Like I couldn't homeschool my own children. Like I'm like
Mm-hmm.
that connection was not there where they were like, yeah, you're the one to teach me. I
Yeah.
was not the
Yeah.
person to teach him. And I'm like, I'm your mom though. Like that was kind of like an eye opener for me. Like, holy
Yeah.
crap.
It's
And
real
so
though.
I really kind of struggled with that. And I I think that was kind of when I decided to like kind of scale down my business, and at the time there was some photographers leaving just because they didn't want to work during, the whole COVID part. And I was okay with that. If they did their thing, that was fine. Um, and then I was like, I'm not gonna hire anymore. We're just gonna scale back. We're gonna make this so we can have a life as well. We were just working
Sure.
so hard for so long. Like, do what you got to do at this point.
Yeah.
And at that point, I started to paint more. Like, I had taken a huge break from painting. You go from high school where you love it and you're doing it all the time, and even in college you're doing it all the time, and then you
Mm-hmm.
just take like this 20-year break of not doing it. Like
Hmm.
you don't realize how much you miss it until you start doing it again.
Sure.
um and so during COVID I did these murals in my kids' rooms, and then I started doing other things, and it just kind of has spiraled. And so like the last, I would say, 2 or 3 years, I've really tried to make it like my second business, kind of leading into retirement. It's weird to say that we're thinking about retirement right now, but it's like
Well,
realistically, you know,
and you're a grandma. I
maybe
mean,
I'm
so
a grandma, so I think about things like that.
yeah.
But yeah, it's like I was kind of thinking, I will do photography as long as people hire me, but you know, retirement, I mean, I can paint till I'm 90, right? Like I never have
Right.
to quit. I never have to fully
Yeah.
retire from that. So yeah, that's kind of like my journey up until, till where I am now. And,
Yeah.
I'm taking advantage of, we have an art council here in St. Charles, and I joined that this spring, and they have classes and lectures and exhibits that we can submit our work to. And I had, they put my art in a coffee shop that sold it. There's opportunities that I've never thought of before that I'm now doing. So it feels good. It
Super
feels good
cool.
when people buy your stuff, like
Oh
it's a
man,
it's a good feeling. So yeah,
that's very
that's
cool.
yeah, that's where I'm at.
Very cool. And to know that like I've got a buddy who does woodworking. I had him on the podcast. And I think one of the things he talks about being a creative in terms of like what you then produce, sort of the honor of like knowing like that's probably taking a pretty prominent place in someone's house, or
Mm-hmm.
like you're like, that's significant as well. Like what
Yeah.
that means kind of with your
Yeah,
clients.
you can't describe the feeling of that.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
made work where it means either everything to me or nothing to me, like just depending
Mm-hmm.
on my mood that day or what I'm going through at that time period. Like
Sure.
like the one that's like right here, like, to
Mm-hmm.
the average eye, this is just a painting of a farm, but for
Mm-hmm.
me, this was the painting I did right after my dad passed,
Oh
which
man.
it's been like almost 2 years, and
Wow.
it took me forever to finish it because you just think about farms and you think about harvest, and it's like,
Hmm.
well, that's dad. I don't think of those
Yeah.
things, but when I think of those things, I think of my dad. And so, you're painting and sobbing, and it's
Oh
like
my gosh.
it's
What
it's
a
like it's like a super emotional thing to go through. And it's like you want to make art for other people like that, that go through similar things. Like, I've sold some art where people look at the painting and have like a whole story, like that they want to
yeah.
share. And that's what it reminds them of. And that is
Yeah.
such a cool feeling. Like, it's like, I want to do more of that, you
Right.
know?
So just for a quick second, that's really fascinating. And I, we both have lost our dads and, kind
Mhm.
of both kind of have that, just understanding and empathy for each other in that way. But
Mhm.
you saying that about like I was really intrigued by that comment of like, was there something that finishing that painting meant sort of putting something away too, or the closure of, I mean, obviously you have his memories but was there something tied to that painting finishing that and that meaning something that was hard to get to that finished point?
Yes and no.
Okay.
I think there'll be a lot more paintings that come up, you know, to finish the grieving period. I have
Yeah,
a
yeah.
lot in my head that I want to do, um that I don't think my skill level is there yet, but it's in my brain
Okay.
of what I want to do. So I think once the ones that are in my head finally are in production, I
Yep.
think it'll help.
Sure.
But yeah, you go through a period of time, and then all of a sudden you see something or you remember something, and then it just brings up a whole
Yeah.
new set of, you
Mm-hmm.
know, you just want to cry in a corner,
Yeah.
like, and I don't know if that ever goes away. Like, I guess I'll have to talk to somebody who's lost their parents from years and
and
years ago, does if it ever goes away. But I
and do we
haven't
want it to?
experienced that yet.
Yeah, and do we want it to? I don't think we should.
Yeah,
Like
I don't
those
think we
things that
should.
trigger tears are, I think, sacred things, and a lot of times it's things that, to your point, maybe come out of the blue and are things that you wouldn't think would be that thing. I know that's been for
Hmm.
me. Of like, there's been times I'm like, wow, I can't believe that discussion or memory didn't make me cry, and then there can be something so small of like seeing something that seems so meaningless and like, oh my gosh, I'm just
Yeah,
crying through my dad. So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it's been a lot of that because it's like, you can, you know, us living so far away from, I live in Chicago. My dad
Hmm.
lived in Rugby. You can go through
Yep.
long periods of time not thinking about it and going throughout your day, and then, certain things will trigger it. Like, for me, it was like harvest. That was like my
Yeah.
dad's time of the year. Like, that's when you
Sure.
remember them, like, for certain things and helping him and, being around, the farm and stuff. And so I have, like, my house is like a whole, like, art gallery. So I have my harvest pictures up right now, leading into my fall pictures. But it's like my favorite time of the year to hang art is like, because I have one that I did of my dad, and, beside this one. And so it just makes me feel better, I think, just
Yeah.
having that around.
That's cool. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, I want to just ask you this really quick is, I'm really fascinated by creativity. I'm a writer. But, and we're going to talk about some of the painting I've tried to do, but,
Yeah.
there's a great line that says the object of art is not to reproduce reality, but to create a reality of the same intensity.
Mm.
When I see the painting behind you, when I see some of the stuff I've seen you create, that's what comes to my mind. You're creating a reality of the same intensity that's as striking as a farm sunset in reality, or even sometimes maybe more so. I don't know, but like what is it about, what kind of inspires, you've talked about some, but inspires your art and creativity?
Um, a lot of it, for me, it's it's memories, I think.
Hmm.
It always like when I can see a painting, like, and I do this a lot when I go to like museums. I love looking at other people's art,
Mm-hmm.
especially the old masters. Like, I don't know what it is about their landscapes that just I love, but there are some artists where um I look at their stuff and it's like I can stare at it all day. Like,
That's awesome.
like we had Terry Redlin was
Mm-hmm.
our painter in the Dakotas,
Yep.
and he had stores in every mall, and I just so happened to work at the mall when I was in college, and every break that I had, I was in the Terry Redlin
Hmm.
store just staring at the paintings, and it's just like it just reminded me of home, and it reminded me of like everything was kind of old fashioned too, where it was like, oh, that was like my dad's era or my grandma's era. And it
Yep.
just kind of reminded me of family. And so
Sure.
a lot of my paintings, I find myself painting stuff that like brings back memories of something. Um,
Hmm.
that's kind of
That's
what
fascinating.
what I
Okay.
kind of like to paint. Like, and like I said, like the one right here, it's like it's like a farm at dusk. And I remember as a child, living out at the farm, like my favorite part of the day was like, that last 20 minutes before the sun,
Mm-hmm.
where everything
Yeah.
went dark, where
Yeah.
everything was starting to quiet
Yep.
down, and you got to go in, and it was just like, there was just like something peaceful about
Yep.
that last 20 minutes of the day.
Hmm.
Do you
Oh
remember
yeah.
that? Like, do
Yeah.
you,
100%. Yeah. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. It was
So
like the
that's
day
kind
was
of what
coming
I
to a
like.
close.
Yes. Yeah, and that's kind of what I've been kind of gravitating towards painting. And lately I've been, you hear all the news and all that, and the spiritual side of me comes out too, where
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the next probably, couple years I'll be painting more. I don't want to say like Jesus pictures, but more spiritual,
Mm-hmm.
kind of like peaceful pictures. Like, I had a very religious grandma who
Mm-hmm.
had like, those Jesus pictures
Mm-hmm.
all over her house, and they were like cool but creepy at the same time. Like, but I remember how, she loved them, but I'm just like, I kind of want to do something that reminds you of God and, Christ,
Yeah.
and but
Yeah.
like more of in a modern way where people
Oh man, that's cool.
aren't so scared by it, like
I saw, have you done several of those already? Because I mean, I remember seeing one that you had of Jesus in a, what was that? I'm trying to remember.
it
I
was
loved
like
it.
it was a really big, I mean, this thing was huge. But it was kind of an abstract, and
Mm-hmm.
then Jesus was like super small in the background. I
Yeah, I
sold
think
a
that's
lot
it.
of prints from that. Like,
Okay.
I think people want that, but they don't know how to ask for it. You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah, yeah.
I've done a couple with like, Jesus in the background, and I'm just like, I kind of dig this. I kind of
I
think
I
maybe,
dig it. I love
yeah,
that. I hope you keep doing more of that stuff. That's very
yeah.
cool.
I think that's
Yeah.
where the
Because there's so
future.
much meaning and depth behind us.
Mhm.
To your point, like as you sat and stared at the mall, like there's, I mean, I've heard of people actually sort of coming to faith through a painting that just the depth, it's like blows words away of like,
Mhm.
there's something here, like
Yeah.
someone here. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So yeah, thanks for. I love that the link to memory and that's being a catalyst for some of your creativity, and inspiration, and kind of some of that stuff with that. Where so I'm going to have a link in the show notes to your sort of business, but people can, I guess, hop online and order or get commissions,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I love commissions are probably my favorite just because
Sweet.
it's kind of like I can paint something that I know is going to be treasured in somebody's home already. I've
Yep.
got 50 paintings in my closet back there that don't have a home yet. But having something that's commissioned that I know is going straight to somebody's house is so fun to do. Um,
That's cool.
but yeah, I'll definitely give you my website and share
Yeah.
it. And yeah, people can
Yeah, we
order
definitely will.
prints or originals.
Sweet.
And just, yeah, it'll be
Yeah,
awesome.
I will have the link in the show notes to that. So the okay, so here's what we're gonna do. We're going to do a quick ish show and tell, we're calling it, right?
Yeah.
Of some painting work. Now I'm gonna be the opening act very briefly because you're the you are the artist here performing. But I wanted to okay, a couple of quick things and then we're gonna get to your stuff. My wife and I, when we were dating, she's an artist. She was in art school. So when we started dating, part of it to kind of I liked it. I like creativity, and some of it was trying to probably like try to show off to her, try to steal her heart that way. But I did get into an era of motivational art, like this guy, Dare to be Different. That never really took off, but that was an attempt at some motivational cow art, I called it. I had that, and then now I will say this. This was more of what you were talking about, like maybe looking at a picture and painting. This is kind of our landscape in South Carolina near the. I'm pretty
Okay.
proud of. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So there's
That's
something
pretty
there.
good. That's
Okay.
pretty good,
Thanks. I mean,
Travis.
I
Yeah.
probably have a lot of the shadowing wrong, but it was just like I looked at the palmetto tree and like kind of the
Mm-hmm.
ocean bay there. So there's a little of my end of things. So now, Rachel, what do
Mm.
we got? What do we
Okay.
see here?
Okay. Show and tell for Rachel. Let's see what I got. All right. So to kind of copy your cow, was that a cow? That was a
Oh,
cow, right?
that that's how bad I am. Yeah, no, it was a large dairy cow.
Okay. So my paintings change as my mood changes. So every
Mm-hmm.
once in a while, I gotta pull out a
Oh
donkey.
man, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
So he gets hung up every once in a while in my house when I just feel like,
I love that.
I need something silly in my house.
That's
Um,
amazing.
and I was going to show you my husband's favorite
Okay.
his favorite piece of work that I've done. And this one I did, it's not recent, but it is probably one of his favorites because it's
Oh
of,
man,
one of our pets.
that is
That's
incredible.
so I've done
A
Bella.
d- he's still with you, your pup?
No, she's
Okay,
gone. And maybe that's why it's his favorite painting, but
sure. Yeah.
it was like one of my first real realistic pet portraits that I've done, and it's still today his favorite. And then the last one I wanted to show was, of course, of my dad that I did for him when he was still alive, but since he's gone, I got it back, and now I get to have it. But I did that one of I'm trying to angle it so it's not so glary,
Okay.
but
Yep.
that's my dad as I remember him with his gray t-shirt and a dog on the swing, you know.
That's awesome.
So I always pair this on my
Cause
fireplace with the one in the background. It just makes me happy.
that's
But yeah,
so
that's
dad's always up. Dad's always up somewhere or in the
yeah, for sure.
okay.
But yeah, and then
Love
everything
that.
else is online. So yeah, right in
Yeah.
my storage room.
Very cool. Yeah. So yeah, like I said, we'll have the link up and definitely support. Her work is amazing. So yeah. Um, okay, so we're gonna be in the home stretch here of the final kind of last part of this conversation. And I just want to ask you, you know, you've been reflecting some on this, but like, what's been a big adversity in your life that you've overcome, and kind of just, kind of how you got through some of that.
Yeah, like I had told you prior to us starting, like I've been very blessed. Both me and my family, we haven't really gone through a ton of hardship or anything
Mm-hmm.
like that. I mean, besides, losing a parent, of course, but
Yep.
for the most part I've been very lucky. I think probably the biggest thing me personally is self-doubt. You
Hmm.
know, when you aren't really confident, like in
Mm-hmm.
school I was never confident. I don't know if it
Mm-hmm.
was just because I had terrible grades and kind of, I was shy, I wasn't,
Mm-hmm.
an outgoing person. And I think forcing myself to get out of my comfort zone um was probably the best thing I could have done for myself.
Hmm.
Even like my first job in high school was, I got a job at McGuire's. Do you remember
Oh yeah.
McGuire's?
Heck yeah.
Well, the only reason I got this job was because my dad worked there for a million years.
Oh,
He
okay.
was the service manager. So he
Hmm.
convinced the right people to hire me, and it was answering phones. Like,
Dang.
and
That's
so
fun.
that was kind of like the first like thing I had to like really get over, was talking to strangers on the phone. And then
Sure.
for whatever, reason, I could not remember their phone numbers or write it down correctly or remember names. And so I was terrible. Like, I should have gotten fired from that job. Um, but again, connections, when your dad's a
Yeah.
manager, you don't get fired very easily. But
Yeah.
I remember just like pushing through that job and just being so, horrified with myself and, my
Hmm.
what I've been doing. And, again, when I worked at Dakota Collectibles and they sent me to trade shows, I had to do sales at these trade shows. And it was, again, talking to people and showing that I was a confident person, which I wasn't. And, now I'm in sales again. I'm selling art and selling
Hmm.
photography. And, it's like you have to fake it till you make it
Yep.
kind of attitude.
Mm-hmm.
And then after a while, it's, it just kind of becomes you,
Sure.
you just are that person after a while.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that was probably the hardest thing I've ever had to really kind of personally get over, is
That's a
just
great example.
self-doubt.
Yeah, self-doubt. So, and I imagine like your art journeys was a big part of like getting that courage and kind of putting yourself out there.
Oh
Would
yeah,
that
it
be a big part of
was.
it too?
Oh, absolutely. You always think you're terrible, until you get enough
Mm-hmm.
compliments, and then after a while you're like, well, maybe I am okay, but
Right.
it takes a lot of people to tell you you're good until you
Sure.
realize that you're okay,
Yeah, yeah.
but yeah, art is, man, that's one of the, I think, the top things you think you're not good at, but
Mm-hmm.
realistically you are.
Right. Yeah. And then everyone's got so many opinions and
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
that just constantly, yeah, everyone's an art
Yeah.
critic.
Oh yeah.
That's a great example of adversity that is, uh, yeah, that's sort of the everyday. I like what you said about like the journey through that was a process, and
Mhm.
the affirmations that helped, the courage, I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, what would you say you're most proud of in your life today?
um I, of course, I'm proud of my, kids and family, and the life that me and my husband have built. um but I think I'm more proud of actually following something I'm very passionate about. I think when you go through stages in your life of, in your 20s, you're just trying to make money, and
Hmm.
even in your 30s, you're just trying to get by and make money so you can get the right house, the right cars, the right lifestyle.
Hmm.
And I think after a while, that's not enough.
Right.
Um, Especially in your 40s, I think you kind of turn a leaf, and when you hit middle aged, and
Yeah.
you're just like, well, there has to be more to
Sure.
life than just working. For what? What are
Mm.
you working for?
Yep.
Where I finally found something that truly makes me happy,
Hmm.
and it's like a kid dream. Like, it's a life, the whole life of wanting to be an artist. Like, I think I remember in fifth grade, they ask you what you want to be when you grow up. And I'm like, I want to be an artist, not thinking that would ever happen. And it's like, it's finally coming to life, which is,
Yeah.
I'm super proud of that. I'm super proud of just finding the courage to get out there and put myself out there and do it. Um, I
Hmm.
would I would encourage everybody to go for it. if they haven't already.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, good word. So I always like to end these podcasts with a question that's really kind of is highlighted by the quote from T.S. Eliot when he says, "Where's the life we have lost in living?" I think it's a great question to always ask ourselves, but especially we find ourselves, I find myself in middle age at now 46, really thinking about those big life questions and kind of also like, what is my spark? What am I being motivated by in the day to day? And I love to hear what
Mhm.
friends and others are as well. So I'm going to put that question to you, Rachel. Where do you find your inspiration and spark for life?
Um, I guess without sounding very long-winded, I think the spark changes throughout your life. When you're a young adult getting off on your own, your I think your spark is motivation to like impress your parents, make them proud. And then it goes to finding your career and making money is like kind of like your drive and your spark. And then it turns into, finding a spouse and having a family and kind of mimicking the life that you had as a child, if it's a good one. um but then I also think when you get to a certain point in your life when you have all of those things and you're still not like, I don't want to say happy or content, but you feel like something's still missing.
Mm-hmm.
um I think you got to dive deep into what you're missing. So for me, I was a Catholic school kid uh till 6th grade, and then your parents drag you to church willingly or not, for the rest of your childhood. And me personally took a huge break. And it's not like I left the church. I did not believe in God. I just
Mm-hmm.
didn't attend mass anymore. I just had other things to do. And I think that was the part of me that was missing. Um, and I didn't even know it. So as, a middle-aged adult now that we are, I guess it's been about 7 years since I started taking my kids to church, and I really realized that was the piece that was missing for me was God.
Mm-hmm.
Having him, praising him every week really kind of soothed the soul and made me, um, I guess, be a better person. And I guess the spark now is, you know, with social media and the world being what it is today, you can really dive deep into a rabbit hole of just hate and just people that have not obviously have not found God themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And it just kind of really takes a toll on
Mm-hmm.
your soul. And so for me, I feel like God gave me a gift for a reason, as an artist. Um, and I think now my I guess spark is to create art that is more meaningful and brings peace into people's homes, whether it's a beautiful landscape or I think I really might start getting into having a little bit more Jesus art in my collection.
Mm-hmm.
You remember the grandma art that hung on everybody's walls, the Last Supper and the giant crucifixes. And I feel like people don't have those in their homes anymore, whether or not it's just doesn't go with their decor or whatever I don't personally have them in my home. I like something a little bit more modern. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think that's kind of what I'm going to strive for. That's, is to make art that people are comfortable putting in their houses, that bring them peace and think of God. And, it's really easy to become a selfish person when you
Mm-hmm.
don't have a reminder of there is somebody up above who cares. And, your goal in life should be to go to heaven. That's what we always kind of believed in. So I think
Mm-hmm.
a reminder in your home is, I think, very important. So kind of that's where I'm at right now with everything is. yeah, bringing a little bit more Jesus into your home,
Man, I love it. Really love that. And it really, everything you said there is, that's a really powerful way to see the world, and really a way to live. What you also said reminds me of exactly something my brother Jeremy said, and he can't speak because he had a brain injury, but
Mhm.
he can spell. So he spells some of the most profound messages. And what you just said is so in alignment with what he said, spelled one time recently. He said this: the gift we have living in our hearts needs to be shared with everyone.
Yeah.
And I love that. I mean, that's exactly kind of what you're saying of like, right? Like the gift,
Yeah.
your gift, right?
Yeah. And I feel like, people don't want it in their faces. People are kind of weird about religion and God, and, nobody wants to flat out talk about it, but I think it's very important to just to have it, whether it's a
Mm-hmm.
silent belief or it's, you throw it out there for the world to see. But
Mm-hmm.
I do think it's important, and people should never shy away from it just because they're
Right.
embarrassed or
Right.
um, scared.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just
No, it's a
fear.
good word. It's a good word. And I think there's a lot of people, that are very hungry to talk about it. They just don't
Hmm.
trust necessarily who they're with,
Yeah.
or, just like maybe there's not the safety there to like be. And I think people now are just, there's so much skepticism about like just authority figures. We've just, political
Yeah.
divides. I mean, just, we can't even talk to each other, I feel like. So yeah, you're right. I'm excited for your vision for some of this new art with a faith focus in Jesus that will, yeah, like maybe be a new conduit for both inspiration, but also conversation. I
Hmm.
mean, hanging up on a wall is a great way to like, wow, I love
Yeah.
that, and well, why do you love it? It's like,
Yes, exactly.
yeah,
Yeah. Art
yeah,
should be talked about. It shouldn't just be a pretty picture. It should have some sort of meaning to the person that buys it, you know?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Awesome. Well, that's really a great way to go out. Really has been fun talking and hearing from
Yeah.
you. Yeah, what's inspiring you, and how we can learn from one another and maybe latch onto some inspiration. And yeah, it's been really fun. So thanks
Yeah.
for hanging out today.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. This was fun, and I'm just honored to be one of the chosen ones.
It's like a reference to the show The Chosen. So that's a
Yeah,
great show,
right.
by the way, to check out.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, we will see you later.
All right. Thanks, Travis.
Yep. Hope you enjoyed the episode today. Check out the show notes for any links or resources shared in the episode. If you enjoy the podcast, it would be really appreciated if you'd subscribe, leave a 5-star review, and share it with friends. May we all remember these words from writer Mary Oliver. Instructions for living a life. Pay attention, be astonished, tell about it.